The escalating battle between the US and the European Union over illegal subsidies enjoyed by Boeing and Airbus is hurting global supply chains. The effects could spread beyond aircraft tariffs and create headwinds in the global economy. Jaguti Dave reports from Washington, D.C.
The transatlantic tussle between Airbus and Boeing rumbles on, despite signs of easing trade tensions elsewhere between the EU and the US. Both sides have failed to come to a negotiated settlement on aviation, and the WTO is expected to make another ruling on unfair subsidies next year, this time in favour of Airbus and against Boeing and the US. Retaliatory tariffs from the EU could then be on the horizon.
Well, I mean, this is the intriguing and potentially very painful outcome, because $7.5 billion is significant, but it's all being shifted to fashion and cheese and wine. Imagine if the Europeans get a similar power for retaliation and impose all of that on U.S. aerospace exports. That would be devastating. Impossible to quantify, but truly devastating.
US airlines operating Airbus fleets have been getting them assembled at Airbus's facility in Mobile, Alabama, which is exempt from sanctions. But they see this as a stopgap. Although it has for now softened the blow of tariffs, many airlines are still worried about a drawn-out dispute and what it could mean for their business and their customers. Airbus has said US tariffs will increase costs on both sides of the Atlantic, hitting US supply chains and affecting hundreds of thousands of jobs. Airlines such as Delta, American and low-cost carriers such as Spirit and JetBlue all use Airbus as part of their fleet. They're concerned about increased costs as well as their ability to continue offering competitive fares. Emirates, the world's biggest long-haul airline, said there was a risk that increased costs from tariffs would eventually be passed down to passengers in the form of higher airfares. But there is cause for cautious optimism. Airbus has provisionally made a deal to sell 100 of its planes to Spirit Airlines, the first significant sale to a US carrier since the tariffs were announced. Some trade analysts also believe the US and the EU will eventually land on a compromise.
Because what you really want to do, especially when it's a big case in a big country, you want to bring people to the negotiating table and you want to negotiate a solution. And I think that's where this will probably end up.
Whilst the aviation industry is braced for a bumpy ride, it still hopes talks between the two sides will take off soon. Jaguti Dave, CNA, Washington.